you'll see how important it is that we learn and that we're able to articulate these different structures in language and behaviour and communication, because then we're able to be very specific and precise in what we're doing. And how we then dress that up, how we present that, is up to us. But how we get the information is different to how we use the information. So if we're using meta-model analysis to get the information from the to them as being that it's about, it's about, getting you to take responsibility, or it's about what the cards say, or it's about some messages from the universe, or that it's about, helping you and guiding you and supporting you. The point is, that's a matter of performance. That's your style. That's not in the technology. The technology is how you get the information. How you use it is up to you. So, Adrian, could you give me a hand?
Yeah.
Since you won't be here tomorrow, we'll make good use of you while you're here. Thanks very much. And so what I'll attempt to juggle for the next 20 minutes is talking to Adrian and talking to you and explaining and pointing out some of the meta-model stuff that's going on, just so that you can sort of check your own analysis against, and you'll probably spot things that I'm not seeing, and vice versa. So you've just become self-employed?
Yeah.
Quite recently?
Very recently, yeah.
And so there's a whole load of things you're doing that you didn't have to do when you had a job. You've talked about networking and sending proposals, and there's a whole, all sorts, talking to people and developing relationships, coaching clients, all that sort of stuff. And, managing all the finances and all the administrative and doing your website and a lot of stuff that I know isn't necessarily completely new to you, but now you're having to do all of that together to get your new business up and running. Is that correct?
Very good. Yeah.
Okay. And obviously I know that because Adrian's told me previously, so I'm not psychic. Adrian's told us. He's talked about some of these things over the past couple of days. So, what I'm interested in, for the purposes of this conversation, if it's all right with you,
of course,
is, you don't know what it is yet, but thank you, is there's a lot of things which you're currently doing. I don't mean like right now, but I mean in this period of time, networking you've mentioned and talking to people about coaching and so on. So there's a lot of things that come really naturally, that you're doing very easily, you're feeling quite energized by, you're getting results from. And there's other things that you've got to do that are a little bit more challenging, harder to make the time for, harder to prioritize, and you find yourself perhaps being distracted away from. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
What would be an example that comes to mind of something that you find yourself thinking about that you think, I really should be doing that, but you find it easy to get distracted away from?
Closing the sales, as in sending the invoices and getting them to a conclusion, to an end point.
That end point being?
Somebody saying, yes, I want to work with you, start date is March the 30th or something like that.
So if that's, so what's the alternative? Is if that's what you're saying, it's maybe difficult to get to, what's happening instead?
I've got various opportunities and I'm confusing myself with picking the right one, or which is the right one to go for. So I've created a lot of opportunity, but then it's picking which is the one that I need to go for, and that sometimes is a bit overwhelming because I have a tendency of creating lots of stuff. Then where do I go then?
Okay, all right.
The right or wrong answer. Oh, sorry, the right or wrong opportunity.
Okay, all right, thank you. Just going to pause you there for a moment. What have you noticed so far?
The word creating
Okay.
comes up a lot
Yeah.
in what about the sales?
Okay.
I'm confusing myself.
Right. Have you noticed his use of the word right?
No.
Picking the right opportunity.
Right opportunity.
Yeah, and he uses his hands the whole time, like that.
Uh-huh. So what's that tell us?
That he doesn't know what's right, what the right opportunity is.
And what kind of a word is right? A judgment. It's a judgment. It's a quality. It's a criteria. It's a judgment on a criteria. When you say focusing on or identifying the right opportunity or the right opportunities, what is it for you that would make an opportunity right?
That it's something I believe in. So it would have to be something along the lines of leadership or NLP. It couldn't just be a generic opportunity. It would have to be specialist or something more interesting.
That's interesting, because when you first have the conversation with the potential client, don't you know that?
No, I do know that. So, for instance, there was a company that I spoke about who do like generic training. Had that conversation on Skype, and I knew then that that wasn't the right business that I would like to work with. Whereas I had a conversation around people that do resilience and mental health in business, and they go in and they support through coaching, and that felt right. Comparison to the other.
Okay. Pause you there for a moment. So what's the strange contradiction that you're noticing? If you think about the logic of the sales process, what did he start off saying was the area that was difficult? Closing sales. And closing sales was somehow dependent on identifying the right opportunity. And the right opportunity is something like leadership or NLP that he's interested in. But doesn't he know that at the beginning? So why would he be at the point of closing and still not know whether that's right or not?
Also, he's also talking about a couple of opportunities that sounds like he's got some opportunity.
Oh, yeah, plenty, yeah, because he's out busy creating at the front end of the sales process. But what we're not getting to is converting those into paying clients. And so he told us, first of all, that the challenge or the difficulty was around getting commitment, getting a date in the diary, sending the invoice. But now he's saying it's about finding the right opportunity, that it's about something he's interested in, like leadership or NLP. But doesn't he know that at the beginning of the sales process, when he says, what are you interested in? Rather than at the end, when he's ready to send an invoice. What does that tell us?
About the deflecting from a real problem.
And therefore this is hesitation, deviation or repetition? Deviation. So let's just rewind a moment. Back to the point at which you said that it was about sort of getting them, you didn't use the word commit, but getting them to commit, getting them to get a date, put a date in the diary, you send an invoice, that point where they say
yes.
Yes. Okay. And that's, yes, we're definitely going to do something, we're going to go ahead, you're going to book you for this thing, whatever.
I know what it is.
Okay. So by not being distracted by the deviation, which would have been easy to do, easy to get lost in, how would you identify the right client? Oh, that's amazing, there's these criteria, there's a great list, and I've really helped Adrian to identify the right clients and the ones that he really feels congruent with. And isn't that nice?
So that's the deviation.
And that's a waste of time, because that was the deviation.
Right.
That's where he misdirected
Okay.
the conversation. And what I've done is been aware of that. I've drawn him back to, let's rewind, to the very first thing you told me was the thing that stood out as being most difficult, or a thing that stood out as being difficult. And now, holding him in that, what reaction did you see from Adrian?
He's found something in his
He
mind.
knows what it is.
When I first rewound him to that point and replayed what he'd said, what was the first thing you saw him doing?
Stop.
Yeah? Bit of movement, smiling. Did he look comfortable at that point?
Yeah. Well, a bit awkward, but knowing what he'd got to do.
Okay, so some more energy, but also a bit of awkwardness, potentially, we might be picking up from that. So you said you know what it is. He need to tell me that he knows what it is.
So you don't find it.
So that you don't ask him.
So I don't ask him. Hesitation, deviation or repetition?
Deviation.
Deviation. Oh great, you know what it is. So now he's going to mislead me again. Out of interest, what is it? I thought you said you knew what it is.
I do.
Oh, sorry. Hesitation, deviation, or repetition?
So I eventually started my own thing, my own business, and I'm trying to say it, but I eventually started my own business.
Is he answering the question I asked?
What was the?
Well, the
that's me.
most obvious thing we can look for when we're coaching is, did they answer the question I asked them? It's so easy, and we've heard this with the audio we've been listening to. It is so easy. The person answers the question they want to answer, and we're distracted by it because they answered us. And now they're giving us all this useful information. It's really interesting. And I want to go off this and that. Did they answer the question? What was the question?
What do you know? What is it?
What is it?
What's the thing?
You know what it is that's causing you to have difficulty getting commitment, getting them to commit and set a date and send an invoice and so on. What is it?
Pressure from my uncle and my family to go back to work.
That's not it.
Pressure from myself to succeed.
At least you were in that one. How is it you're handling the suggestions from your family to go back to work?
Not particularly well, because I've got two parts of the family. One, my dad is encouraging me, and my uncle, who I've always looked up to all my life and based my my criteria for success around what he's achieved. And now I've got to this stage of having my own business, and actually it turns out that he's the one that I thought that I was aspiring to be like. He's the one that's telling me to go back to work.
Is that go back to work as in what you used to working for other people?
Yeah.
Right.
So get a job, be employed
He's the
again.
entrepreneur who I've always looked up to, because I didn't follow my dad's path, although he's been encouraging for me. I followed my uncle's path because I thought that was the right path.
So why would an entrepreneur tell you to go back to work?
So I don't be more successful than him. I don't know.
Okay.
And that's the thing that I'd found. That is something that I've been found difficult. Is I've got to this point now, and the person that I need the most encouragement from is now. I've just seen through the illusion. Whereas my dad has always been there for me. He's like, "Go on, son." Every morning he's sending me like a 4-leaf clover. Go on, son. Go on, son. Go on, son. Whereas the person that I'd always saw my uncle as my dad, rather than my dad.
So what is it really?
Not accepting myself. I
Okay.
don't know.
So if you're at the point with these prospective clients where you could be getting them to commit, they could be putting a date in the diary, you could be sending an invoice.
That means that I'll be ultimately successful and have a successful business,
And
I
that
won't be going back to work.
Contradicts.
But the person I've been believing all my life, my uncle, contradicts that. So
What has historically been your uncle's way of motivating people to do things that he thinks are the right thing to
giving
do?
his judgment or his right or wrong value.
So he expects other people to do what he tells them?
Yes, whether he understands the context or not. Yeah. So that's his.
So for you, the conflict isn't between be self-employed or go back to work.
No,
It's
pleasing
right.
the person who's been my mentor, quote unquote.
Okay. Because if you please your mentor, then
I'm accepted.
and
I'm so successful. I'm ultimately, I've reached that point, pinnacle in my eyes.
So it sounds like you're caught in a dilemma between how do you demonstrate success? Do you demonstrate that you're successful by doing what your uncle tells you to do and making him right, or do you demonstrate success by doing what you want to do and being successful in the way that actually he defines it for himself, since he's an entrepreneur?
Say that again. Is that was a question, wasn't it?
So it sounds like you're caught in a dilemma
Yeah.
between do you go back to work and do what your uncle's telling you to do and be a success in
Exactly.
terms of doing what he's telling you to do,
Yeah.
or do you stick with it and do your own thing and demonstrate measures his own success as an entrepreneur?
The second one. What you said second.
Right.
Or create my own criteria. Actually, before you even brought me up here, this is a question that was going around in my head.
So what do you feel like doing right now?
Just going for it. Just going for it.
How is that any different to what you've been doing up until now?
Well, I have just been going for it.
So just pause there. So one of the things I'm doing with Adrian is creating contrasts. So where he's stuck in a point of indecision because the difference between the two different directions is not sufficient to make a decision obvious. So it'd be like saying, you know, do you want a red Leicester sandwich, or do you want a cheddar sandwich, or do you want a brie sandwich? Oh, I'm not sure on that side. Do you want cheese, or do you want tuna? Oh, tuna. So we make the distinction big, and now the decision is easier. So one of the things I'm doing is taking Adrian's incongruence and separating it into two different distinctions, this or this, to make it easier for Adrian to navigate. And do you remember when we were talking about servo mechanisms and the simple car? I can find the picture. Creating a bigger distinction between the feedback, enabling the system to more efficiently self-correct. So what do you feel like doing differently?
Creating a list Monday morning of my opportunities and maybe colour coding them as to green, amber and red, which ones that I'd like to work with, and just going for it. Maybe creating my criteria for success for the next year, 2, 3 years, whatever. Because now I realise that I was following the wrong criteria, maybe. I kind of feel a little bit, I suppose, let down.
Who now is the judge for right or wrong?
Me.
How is that different?
Feels different.
I kind of pick up a sense of excitement from you, actually.
Yeah, it feels like a little tingle in my heart, like
Yeah, I feel it here,
yeah,
like a buzzing almost.
feels like do what the fuck I like in a way. Yeah. Yeah. Just
So what
definitely
now
feels
constitutes a right opportunity,
what matters most to me?
and what now constitutes a wrong opportunity?
Just learning for me. So if I take action and do it and then it doesn't work out, I don't know whether there is a wrong opportunity, but I suppose a wrong opportunity is doing something based on what other people believe is best for me. Because there's always an intention there. You don't know what it is. You don't know the intention of that advice.
And what would be a kind of a medium, middle of the road opportunity that's like, yeah, I'll do it, it's money, I'll do it, but it's all right. What would be that opportunity?
Consulting on a generic type training for a day, a couple of days a month. That would be. Whereas a right opportunity would be going in specifically do NLP training in a business. That would be right. The wrong one would be just going in just to do some generic sales training or
Okay. Thanks very much.
thanks. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
Well done.